Hello there, Michelle Short here for Tonic Studios. Today I'm taking a look at Nuvo glitter markers. Nuvo glitter markers are a water-based glitter marker which are perfect for adding shimmer to your projects. They can be purchased separately or in sets of 3. There are some colour overlap between the sets of 3 and the individual markers, so you do want to check that before purchasing. But currently there are 19 colours in the range and they are really beautiful. So I'm just showing you here the different packaging between the individual markers and then the sets of 3. On both sets, on the back there is some safety information and some information about the pens and also how to use them for the first time. So I'm just going to take one out here of the packaging. The packaging has some really nice kind of glittery details on it. It's very pretty. You can recycle the packaging or you could keep the pens in there if you wanted to. So the glitter markers themselves have a nice colour representation on them of the colour inside, and also the name and number of the colour, and then again some more kind of safety information and about the markers themselves. When you get the markers, they will have no colour on the nib, and you do need to activate that the first time that you use them. These do have quite a broad nib, but actually you can get some really fine detail with it as well. So what you want to do for the first time that you use them, you just want to press down that nib onto a piece of cardstock or paper, whatever you want to use, just to activate the colour. I like to just press that down back and forth a few times just to get the colour going. You don't want to press too hard at this point and damage the nib, but they are really quite robust. Once the colour comes through, as you can see, the colour comes out nicely and then you can just use them as normal. You won't need to do that again, just for the first time. And here you can see the different ways that you can use it. As I said, the nib is quite broad, but you can get some really fine details, some little dots and some fine lines. But you can, like I said, use them in different ways. And here you can see that really pretty glittery shimmer that you get straight away with these markers. They do show up really nicely on dark coloured cardstock as well. So as you can see here, I've just added that onto some black cardstock. The colour of the marker does kind of diminish slightly when you're using it on dark coloured cardstock, but you do get that really pretty shimmer straight away. So as I usually do, I do like to create swatches for my colouring mediums. I just find it easier for me to be able to see which colours I want to grab quickly. This is the glitter markers chart that you can get from the Tonic website, and it is missing one marker off of it, one of the newest colours. As you can see here, I do have the Iced Americano missing. That's just personally missing from my individual collection, but it is showing on the chart there. So what I did was I created my own chart as well, just because I like to have things in colour order. That's just my personal preference. So I have all of the names listed and then the swatches, and then on the right hand side I've just written whether they're in a collection or you can purchase them singly. That's just helpful for me because I'm a blogger, but if you didn't need to know that information, you wouldn't necessarily need to have that on the chart, but it is quite helpful to have. So let's get started with the first technique, and that is to add the glitter markers onto stamped and coloured images. So I have stamped and coloured out some balloons with alcohol markers here, and then I'm going to use the glitter markers to add some sparkly detail onto them. And I think that this works really nicely for coloured images. So I've got my colour chart here and I'm deciding which colour of red I want to use for that first balloon. What's great with having a colour chart is that it's quite helpful just to see which shade you want to use, but I did dab some little kind of dabs of the glitter marker just to the side of that balloon there, just so that I could definitely see which colour I wanted to use. And here I apologise that it's a little bit difficult to see with my hand in the way, but I have the marker almost kind of straight up and down to add tiny little dots there just onto the bottom of the balloons. I think it's just a nice added way to add that little bit of shimmer and just add some detail onto stamped images. And I'm going to go through here and just add all of those little dots just onto the bottom of the balloons in these kind of rainbow shades. I think dots in particular are really great to add to stamped images, but you could add lines, you could do lots of different things with these markers. If you didn't want to add anything onto stamped images, you could create backgrounds with these on their own, or create lines like plaid background would be really nice to use with these markers. But I do personally really like to use them just to add some subtle detail onto stamped images. And like I said, a really quick and easy way just to add that extra detail and add a little bit of sparkle. And you can see there how they really shimmer in the light. For my project, I also stamped out a unicorn from the Unicorn Wishes set, which is the same set that I used for the balloons. And then for the sentiment on the card, I used the Celebrate Sentiment set, and I used that Happy Birthday from the Herd sentiment and just masked off that from the herd because I didn't particularly need that, and stamped that and embossed that onto some black cardstock. And this is how the project turned out. I added a bit of ink blending onto the background for some sky, and then cut out all of those balloons in the unicorn there. And like I said, I think the added detail with that glitter just works really nicely on those balloons. The next technique that I'm going to share with you is showing you that you can watercolour with these glitter markers. Because they're water based, they work really nicely for this technique. So I have stamped out this daisy image here from the Daisy Doodles stamp set, and I've stamped that with some waterproof ink onto some watercolour card. And I'm taking the glitter markers here and adding some of the colour down onto my glass media mat, and I'm taking a paintbrush. You can use a Aquaflow brush if you wanted to, but I just quite like using a paintbrush. I'm just adding some water onto those glitter markers, and I'm going to use that as my watercolour. So I'm just picking that colour up with a brush, and then I can paint that onto my image. I did find out that the strawberry bonbon colour was a little bit too light for what I wanted, so I'm using the pressed peony colour for most of this image, and then I go in and add a darker colour. So this colour here is the raspberry tart colour, and it's quite a bit brighter, but when you mix it with that pressed peony colour, it does dull it down a little bit, which is what I personally wanted for this image. So I'm just going to go through and pick up the colour here on the paintbrush and just paint that on. And the more water that you add to these markers, the less sparkly that they do get, but it is just another option to be able to use these in different ways. And I love that you can mix the colours and blend them together as well, and they do blend really quite nicely, especially on the watercolour card. Now I have taken one of the green shades and one of the yellow shades. This is the Venetian Jade and the Golden Ochre, and I've mixed them together completely to create a brand new green shade. The greens in the colour selection, one is more of like a mossy green, and one was more of a kind of bright green, I suppose, and I wanted something in between, so it's quite nice that you can just mix them completely together to create brand new shades. So for the top of the flower here, I'm using that golden ochre colour again, and I'm also adding in some sweet apricot as well just on the top, and again they're going to blend really nicely together. That golden ochre colour is quite bright, but when you mix it with other shades it does dull down a little bit, which is personally what I wanted for this image, but if you did want it bright, it's really nice as well. So now I'm going in and just adding in some colour directly from the glitter marker, and so that just gives me a bit more of an intense colour, which I really like. Like I said, that you could use these in lots of different ways. You can get more of a watercolory look, or you can get more of a vibrant look. If you go over the stamped lines, sometimes you do get quite a bit of the glitter onto the stamped lines, and that's what happened with the top part of this flower. Personally, I didn't mind that at all, but you could re-stamp it, or you could go over that with a black pen and just add back in those black lines. But I quite like the added shimmer. I made this project into a tag in the end, and I just used the Celebrate Sentiment set again for the sentiment. For my last technique today, I'm going to do ink smushing with the glitter markers. So there are two ways that I know of to do ink smushing. There probably are a few other ways, but these ways are, I find, quite simple to do. I have taken the Tonic Easy Clean Matte and just added that onto the top of the glass media mat that I was using. And I've taken 3 shades of blue glitter markers here, and I'm randomly scribbling those onto the mat, and then I'm going to take the light mist spray bottle and just mist those with some water. And like we did with the last technique, this is going to make them into watercolours, but this time I'm going to smush or pounce some watercolour paper into that colour, and that's going to give me a really nice background. This is a bit more of an organic, possibly you could say messy look, depending on what you particularly like. But I really love this look. It just gives, like I said, a nice organic look, especially good for backgrounds of seas and just lots of different backgrounds that you could use them for. I'm going to be using it for a sky background, but like I said, it does work out quite nicely for water because you've kind of got like that splashy look. Like I said, the more water that you add to these, the less glittery that they become, but you do still get the shimmer with this technique. So for the other way of doing ink smushing is to add the colour onto a piece of acetate or stamp packaging, anything that you can lift up that's see-through, and then I'm actually going to use that to be able to pounce that or smush that onto the watercolour paper. So we're doing the same thing but in the opposite way. And I really love this way in particular because you can control a bit more where the colour actually goes. And for this, I'm just going to heat set that in between the different colours and just add that colour onto the acetate, spray it with water, and then pick that up and pounce that into the cardstock. The colours that I'm using for this are Imperial Blue, Blue Bliss, and Athenian Blue. I believe that's how it's pronounced, but don't quote me on that. So I really like how this turned out. Like I said, I'm just adding lots of different layers onto this with the 3 different shades, but obviously you could mix and match lots of different colours here however you wanted to. I wanted to keep them all blue for my project because I'm going to use this as a sky background, and I thought that the blues would work quite nicely for that. It's difficult here to be able to see the shimmer on camera, but you can still get quite a lot of shimmer even though I used a fair amount of water for this one. And this is how I made this background into a project. I used the Up in the Air stamp set, stamped out some clouds and the large image with the boy and the girl in the hot air balloon there, coloured those with alcohol markers, and then fussy cut those out and added that onto the background here. Obviously you could add extra detail with the glitter markers onto the stamped image as well, but I just kept it as it was. There is quite a lot of shimmer in that background. Thank you for joining me today for a look at Nuvo glitter markers. Links to the products used will be in the description bar on YouTube and also over on the blog. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.